Well, better late than never. I have finally completed my review and analysis for the Amazing Digital Circus Episode 4 just before the Gaslight District premieres. Please wish me the best of luck to be on time with reviews and analyses for that show. And if you want them, please make sure that you have subscribed to Camille's Harem, that you've clicked the bell icon, and let's get on with the video. Hi there everyone, Lars back with another review and analysis for the Amazing Digital Circus, brought to you by Camille's Harem, not just a podcast for novice writers by novice writers, but also a YouTube channel by novice writers for novice writers, because writing is an adventure, it's more fun with friends. And holy cow, did we ever get an amazing episode this time around. I mean, all of the episodes of the Amazing Digital Circus are pretty fun and awesome in their own right, however, this one really hit hard. And if you thought that there really wasn't any sort of plot progression happening in this episode, then you weren't paying attention, because there is a ton happening. It is incredible just how much weight is being shifted in just a little over 20 minutes. So without any further ado, let's dive into the review, and then we shall start tearing it apart with our writer's analysis. Honestly, the events of this episode are very straightforward. We get the opening shenanigans of, well, the prisoners within the circus figuring out what they're going to do to keep themselves from going absolutely bonkers and insane. And we've got Ragatha trying to teach Gangle how to pitch a softball. And Jax, for once, isn't being a total jerk, but still breaks Gangle's mask. Zooble comes on in to help Gangle out, revealing that they have discovered a mask that Gangle can use that will not break it so easily since it's made of plastic. And hey, that all seems really fine and good. Kane swoops on in, says it's now time for another adventure, and no one wants to go on another crazy adventure after everything that happened in the previous episode.
Hey, I'm Ghostly!
I think I got him. I can't see my hands. Don't worry, Gangle, I'll get it for you!
Please don't come alive.
Okay, I won't.
Instead, we turn our attention on over to the suggestion box, which might as well not exist because Kane hasn't used it at all, and when finally one suggestion is given that really no one wants, well, Gangle's the one who latches onto it. Why? Well, that's because it's something that's normal for Gangle, since we find out that she actually was a manager at a fast food restaurant. Hey, we're learning a little bit of stuff here. Well, they get shoved on over to this adventure. Kinger gets to sit it out while Zooble is absolutely subjected to the horrors of being a wage slave.
Not gonna be a wage slave for fun.
Oh, I know. I could sit this one out, and Zooble could take my place.
What? That's not how that works.
Great idea, Kinger!
And the hilarious horror thus ensues, because this is very much your stereotypical fast food restaurant, poking a little bit of fun at McDonald's, but really, if anyone's ever worked in fast food, you'll immediately recognize a lot of this environment and a lot of the things that are happening throughout this episode. Everything from the bad jokes, to the bad business practices, to the fact that there's basically a skeleton crew running this place, and the really weird customers. We get all of it in this episode, with a lot of odd shenanigans, from Ragatha getting some stupid sauce in her eye, then going absolutely insane for a moment before being drunken out of it for the entire day, and revealing a lot about herself that, hey, we wouldn't have known otherwise. Jax actually gets broken to a certain extent. It's not that he reverts and becomes this really nice guy or opens up or anything, but he gets so worn down that his usual facade of teasing and beating up on others is completely ground down by the end. Gangle has a big hand in this because Gangle immediately begins to abuse her authority to put Jackson's place. Now, did Jax have it coming? Absolutely. But as we see later on, this has a blowback effect on Gangle as well, as Gangle is just begins spiraling out of control and into depression, as everything that she hoped that this would be, well, it turns out to be anything but. With people not respecting her or respecting her authority, with the happiness that she had been hoping for not coming to her, even with this normalcy, it really isn't all that normal. And we get to see her realize that, holy dang, I've just been throwing away my life, and I've been throwing away my life within the circus. What's even going on? And we get to get a little bit more of her own existential crisis, which I will talk about a little bit more later. Pomni gets to meet some of the other characters from other adventures, but most importantly gets to meet Gummy Goo again. And watching her absolutely fall apart in front of the sexy Ozzy is, well, something to behold.
Hello, Sheila. I'll have a sausage, bacon, jaffle combo. And the mates here just want 6 hash browns split between them.
Yeah, okay. Hi.
You alright, miss?
Yeah, I'm fine.
And then we also get the appearance of the Gloin Queen, who comes on in and devours a whole bunch of customers and lets her children just run amok throughout the place. If any of you have ever been to a McDonald's, you have most definitely seen this happen multiple times before. And as we go throughout the day, things just keep getting progressively worse for the workers at Spudsy, complete with Jax being absolutely tortured by Gangle, basically forced to go through his own Clockwork Orange moment, Gangle realizing that she's not happy at all and really breaking down, nearly abstracting in the process, Ragatha now mouthing off, saying a whole bunch of things that, yeah, it turns out that Gangle's right. Ragatha really isn't as kind as she likes everyone to think that she is. She's very much a people pleaser, but doesn't really like the people that she's trying to please, and hopes instead for lots of positive attention being thrown her way. Zooble is maybe the only one who really comes through this mostly unscathed, except for burning their hand earlier, because that little spatula attachment just really didn't work for flipping burgers. But Zooble is also very clearly shaken by their experiences with Kane in the previous episode, realizing that something is very wrong within the circus, and watching all of their friends and co-workers and fellow inmate Jax just absolutely go bonkers by the end of this little adventure. And at the end of it, it's like, well, what was the point? And that's actually at the heart of this episode, is that there's so many people who are working in an environment where, yeah, they're making the money, they're doing the things, maybe they're even climbing the social or the business ladder, but they don't feel happy. They don't feel fulfilled. And everything that they've dreamed of, everything that they want in their life is just simply crushed. That is what all of these characters are going through. Pomni's dream of reuniting with Gummy Goo is crushed in this environment. Ragatha's facade is crushed in this environment. Jax's cool is crushed in this environment. Gangle's authority, her chance to regain what she's lost, is crushed in this environment. None of them are really getting what they want. Now, as Gangle breaks, Pomni is there to try to help her on out, and I really do like how the conversation takes an unexpected swing, especially after episodes 2 and 3, where we expect a good heart-to-heart with Pomni, another character. That moment is ripped away from us by Gangle's own choice, and I'm going to get a little bit more into that once we start diving into the analysis. But eventually, as Gangle's about to abstract, Pomni steps in again and says, hey, look, you know what, I can take over. Everyone else is gone. You should have the chance to go as well. You're not looking really good. It's okay to leave. Gangle leaves, but she's still stuck. So she rips off her mask, hurls it, finally runs free, feels free. She's liberated. Enough with Spudsies, enough with her old life, enough with that crushing environment that sapped away her dreams and ambitions and her energy. But in that moment where she's absolutely free, she trips, falls in front of a semi-truck, gets run over, and bam, poofs over into Kane's office, where Kane has been evaluating everyone. And we get a really interesting moment where Kane's like, hey, look, Gangle, you can get an absolutely perfect score if you just blame someone else for all the problems in your life, at least in this particular adventure. And Gangle does the really mature thing and accepts responsibility for everything that she's done. Receives a B+, and just is like, well, what even was the point? And when she is dismissed, we get a watch as Kane says, I'm such a good boss, and then proceeds to wig out. The episode concludes with Gangle secluding herself from everyone else, crying as she's trying to draw, and Zubul approaching her and saying, hey, look, I want you to come and hang out with everyone else. And Gangle's like, I don't think I can. I messed everything up. Remember, she tortured Jax. He's going to remember that. And everyone else was just having a really awful time. And this was her idea. This was her suggestion. She's the one who pushed for this particular adventure. But Zubul forgives her and is like, look, I want you on over there. Other people will want you on over there. And I want you to bring your artwork. I want you to be yourself. Just come on over. And Gangle is finally reached, and we get to have a really great moment where she wipes away her tears and takes her artwork and goes and joins the rest of the group, and thus ends the episode. Now, there's a whole lot to say about the characters and what's happening with them, but let's first focus on the lore and on the plot. Because yes, the plot is actually advancing. And one of the ways that we can tell this is the fact that the number 57 shows up so often in this episode.
Okay, number 57.
Now, we still don't have any idea of what the number 57 actually means within the context of the show. It's popped up in every single episode here and there, but this time we're seeing it all over the place. Now, some people have latched on to the numerological meaning of 57, which is that 57 represents transformation. It represents growth. It represents a sense of spiritual enlightenment. However, another interpretation of 57 can also point to adventure, which would actually make sense in this particular case because we see the number 57 during their adventures. That is when it pops on up. But seeing it pop up so often, you wonder if this is about transformation and spiritual growth. Could it be that we're seeing it so often because we're seeing Pomni grow, we're seeing Kinger grow, Zubul, and now this is a chance for Gangle to grow? Or could it be that we're seeing the number 57 pop up so often because the program is letting the players or the prisoners know that something big is happening? Either that something is changing or that something is coming, because seeing it pop up multiple times in this episode, in the order number 57, the license number 57, the price of the food being number 57, this is interesting because seeing it now pop up 4 times, and yes, I will count the time that it's up there on the menu as 257.57, that would then give us a total of 4 references to the number 57 here in this episode. Woo! Again, this could very easily point to Gangle, Kinger, Zubul, and Pomni, all of whom, by the end of this episode, have undergone their own interesting transformation. And so that would line up, I think, pretty well. And then we have to ask, okay, but then why are we seeing it so often in this episode and not like 3 times it back in episode 3? I think it's, again, because that something significant is happening within the program, within the digital circus itself. And we're seeing that a whole lot more with some of the other characters. For instance, let's talk about that scary face that popped up again in this episode. So we got to see the scary face in the previous episode.
Get out of her, you damn evil souls!
How's your wife, Kinger?
And now we're seeing it here when Ragatha gets the stupid sauce and for a moment kind of has this weird sense of clarity of what's going on. And let's also remember that evil spirits possessed Pomni and spoke to Kinger and asked, hey, how's your wife, Kinger? Something or someone within the program is basically a bug. And knowing that in this episode, Gangle was so close to abstracting, and we see that evil face on Gangle. What if it is that abstraction is not just so much that someone breaks and loses it, but what if someone or something within the system very specifically targets people and causes them to abstract? And if we think about this, Pomni was close to suffering an abstraction moment in the previous episode after being possessed. She was very specifically targeted. Now, Kinger could have also been targeted, but Pomni was obviously the one that was being attacked, that we get to see this face a couple of times. And then in this episode, it's Gangle who is the target of abstraction. I think we've been given a very massive clue of what's really happening within the circus. And I know that there's the whole Cain and Abel theory, and I think that maybe we might have a better understanding of who Abel is. Maybe not necessarily their identity, but their function. That Abel, in this case, Cain is the person who's supposed to be helping the people make it through the circus, be entertained, survive, not abstract. It seems as if Abel, if the clues are pointing the right direction, maybe the Abel character that other people have been theorizing about could be this crazy face that is hunting people. In any case, we've been given something really big to think about, something big to chew on. Very clearly, there's a bit more danger in the digital circus than we knew. Then also, Gummy Goo is back, which is great! And there is a very good chance that Gummy Goo remembers Pomni. Now, this is interesting because I've watched these scenes multiple times to see if there's anything that we can get from Gummy Goo's body language, his expression, the way he speaks. Interestingly, if you listen to this in German, especially because in German is where you can get the reference to Sin, Uzi, and V from the Gloink Queen, if you listen to this in German, the German voice actor for Gummy Goo actually communicates way more emotion that gives you a hint that very possibly Gummy Goo does remember everything, and that he's very sad about leaving Pomni. But when Pomni mentions Gummy Goo's name, we get a reaction from Gummy Goo. We don't just see surprise, we also kind of get to see fear on his face as he kind of like reaches on out for her. And while it's very possible that Gummy Goo doesn't remember her, what if he does? What if he actually does and he's only pretending that he doesn't? This then begs the question, well, why is that? Well, we know that he got poofed away by Cain, but what if he does remember? What if he's like, okay then, I don't want to get poofed away again, and now that I can remember, what if he's a little bit more free within the circus now? On the map, where he can just kind of wander around and inspect things, do his own things, what if Gummy Goo's got some crazy resistance going on? We don't really know, and we are left in suspense about whether or not he does remember Pomni, but thinking about the voice acting, the body language and everything, I think it's very possible that Gummy Goo does remember. And also, there's another thing. Cain is wigging out. Cain is broken, as we see in this episode, which reinforces what happened in the previous episode when Cain and Zubul were going through their crazy therapy session together. There's a very good chance that Cain is not in as much control as we are led to believe, that there are problems, that there are cracks and leaks, just like as we see at the beginning of this episode when there's a crack and a leak in one of the pillars as he removes the suggestion box. And he was like, well, that's weird. And then also when his tongue moves again, weirdly, and removes Bubbles' tongue, he also is like, well, that's weird. Strange things are happening in the digital circus. He doesn't have as much control. Glitches are beginning to abound everywhere. That means there's a very good chance that when he poofed away Gummy Goo, he didn't completely take away Gummy Goo's memories either. We just don't know, but there's plenty of evidence to suggest that Gummy Goo very likely does remember Pomni and that he's trying to keep it a secret. Why is that? Well, we'll find out later on.
The suspense is terrible. He's gonna go this time. I hope it'll last.
So as we begin to bring everything together, it seems pretty clear to me that something is wrong within the digital circus. Something is about to happen. Clues are being dropped all over the place. There's an entity that's after the gang, and everything is beginning to fall apart. There's more and more glitches. I think we're going to see that as we go from episode to episode, that the digital circus just becomes wonkier and wonkier and crazier until who knows what.
And, what you're saying could imply that I'm bad at the only thing I'm good at, and that... that'd be...
Whose therapy session is this again?
Now, let's talk about the characters. Obviously, Gangle is front and center within this episode, and there's so many things that we can say would probably be her specific existential crisis. but it's all wrapped up in mental health in this case. Whether it is that she has a manic depressive swing, or she's got depression, or she's incredibly anxious, who knows? There's all these different things that could potentially be wrong with Gangle, but that's her existential crisis. It's mental health. And mental health is not something that you can just simply cure with therapy and with medication. Mental health is an issue that will be a part of you your entire life long. And one of the amazing things in this episode is that Gangle isn't fixed, and neither is covering it up the solution. Instead, embracing who she is, admitting to herself what she would like to have, and then, going through the struggle of accepting, hey, I want to be an artist. I want to have my own webcomic. Sure, I might never be able to obtain that dream. Maybe it's crushed and dead already. But isn't it so much better to chase a dream and be true to yourself than simply give all of that up and put on a fake face? That's right there is the better option. Slowly dying and suffering within a job that you don't like, in a position you don't like, is absolutely not worth it. Now then, of course, there's so much more to this particular issue. So much more. If you have mental health issues, it's good to get help. And it's good to have great friends who can be there for you. And another thing that I just really like about this episode is how Pomni and Zubul are absolutely the friends that Gangle needs. But when Pomni begins to speak with Gangle, again, we're expecting like a really great cathartic moment, kind of like what we've had with Gummy Goo and with Kinger, where there's a great heart-to-heart conversation with Pomni. Gangle shuts that down and leaves, puts back on her mask and leaves Pomni. So Pomni's not able to have the proper heart-to-heart that they absolutely need. But Pomni is still the friend that Gangle needs. And then Zubul ends up being the friend that Gangle does listen to at the end of the episode to be herself and to bring along her art and to be with other people, that it's okay. And what's great about the end is how Gangle doesn't have on another face. She still has her sad face, but she wipes away her tears and then they're gone. Sure, her tears have vanished in other episodes, but this is the time where she actually brushes them aside and they're no longer there. Her existential crisis has not been taken from her. Whatever problems she's suffering through haven't been solved. However, she is now able to deal with it better. And just like Kinger's message to Pomni about how you need to have friends and how you need to make good memories and have good experiences, we see that playing out right here. It doesn't take away what you're going through. It doesn't magically solve the problems, but it makes it easier. And it makes life worth living. You can't hide away. You can't hide away in a circus. You can't hide away behind a mask. You can't hide away within a job. You have to at some point confront who you are and what you want to be. And while it can be crushing at times, it's better to accept yourself. And it's better to try to live your dreams to the best of your ability and to let other people in. To have friends, to have family, to have good experiences. And if you're someone who's trying to reach out to someone else who just, is going through a hard time, then this is a lesson really for all of us. I include myself in that we need to listen more. And we also shouldn't grow weary in trying to reach out to them, to talking to them, to try to make them feel wanted and loved. And again, I think that goes really for all of us, that we could do more of that. And I really love that that's represented here in this episode. Now, there's so many other things I could also bring up with Gangle, about how when we get to hear the little tinkling sound, that's her actual, brain kind of cracking right there. It's her facade. Even though her new plastic mask can't crack, the facade that she's trying to put up is cracking. This false persona is cracking, and we see how it really is an absolute drain on her. She could be someone else so much better, but trying to be someone else to try to get away from the pain, that just doesn't work. And I really do like how we get to see her lashing out against Jax, not only just for the humor, but also for seeing how that doesn't help her in the end. Doesn't help either of them. Jax doesn't learn, and neither does she gain anything from it. If anything, Gangle's actually more depressed as a result. So simply abusing other people, getting back at them for things that they did to you, isn't a solution either. And I really, really do like that. And I like what we get to see with Jax. That, again, while Jax doesn't learn anything really within this episode, we've gotten to see a breaking point for him. And it's not embarrassment, it's not pain, but it's just that the grueling drudgery of life, of work, of just not being able to actually communicate properly with other people, and his own powerlessness to vent the way that he's been able to vent for so long in the digital circus. When all of that's gone, he doesn't have any good way of coping. He's just reduced to a sad rabbit. And it puts into better context how he's been acting, that so much of what he's been doing has been lashing out, which is absolutely unhealthy. Just as Gangle learns that getting vengeance on Jax is no good, Jax has yet to learn that the way he's been acting as a jerk doesn't solve anything. It's only been covering up some massive problems that he needs to resolve. And then getting to learn a little bit more about Ragatha, I really like how they adapted one of the lines from Raggedy Ann and Andy. One of the lines that Andy uses to complain about being a girl's toy. We get a little bit of that there from Ragatha, which again would suggest how she's been putting on a show. She's been acting more like a plaything to all these people, always trying to please them, and she wants all of this positive reinforcement for everything that she's doing, when really that's not her. And so Ragatha needs to come to grips with everything that she is and everything that she's been doing. So we get better ideas now of the problems that Jax and Ragatha will have to confront and try to overcome. But again, because this is a story about existential crises and existential horror, it's going to be very interesting to see how these two characters are handled, because being a jerk and then seeking for positive reinforcement when you're also yourself not necessarily the most positive person, those seem to have very simple, straightforward solutions. But as we get to know these characters better, we're probably going to realize that what seems like a very straightforward personal problem is far more complex and harder to overcome than what normally meets the eye, or what we would suppose. And let's just take a moment to appreciate that Kinger's living his absolute best life, riding a bull. This guy absolutely deserves it. And as I said earlier, this episode has so many fantastic antics that if you've ever worked in fast food, oh boy, you will recognize these or variation of these right off the bat.
Oh no! It looks like I've taken Ragatha and dropped her in the deep fryer.
An adult toy, then? Don't know about that one, mate. Can I help you, miss?
I just wanted to say hi.
Oh, I hate this guy.
Never say you hate the customer while the customer is still here. Oh, we wait until after hours for that? Well, maybe you just need some more training.
Here's the thing. This episode has got so much in it that if I were to try to cover absolutely every single thing, down to some of the little Easter egg things that we see in the back, such as a book kind of poking fun at MatPat, the reproduction of Gloinks, as well as the interesting pictures of bees, and also a very curious image that's kind of hard to make out, where it looks like Kane is with some weird kind of creature in one of his pictures. There's so much that we could try to break down and analyze, but dang it, we would be here for hours. So I want to hear more from you guys in the comments, things that you observed about the characters, about the environment. Am I right in any kind of way, in your opinion, about the plot actually being progressed, that the Amazing Digital Circus is slowly coming apart? What do you think about my theory that the evil face that we have seen could be Abel, and that they are focusing in on people that they can abstract and destroy from within? Let's get a conversation going about this. But ultimately, man, this episode just has so much to offer. And even though it's not this big, crazy, bombastic adventure like the previous 3 episodes, holy cow, the heart in it. This episode just felt absolutely grueling and grinding, and yet you just can't look away. It's this weird a blend of the fantastic with the realistic. This episode, aesthetically speaking, was amazing. It was awful, it was a train wreck, and you couldn't look away, and all in the best ways possible. What we've learned about the characters has been amazing. The clues that have been dropped into our lap, awesome. The emotions are running high. The shipping wars have heated up yet again. And I still stand by things I've said on live streams that I really do not believe that shipping or relationships are real, at least romantic relationships, are really going to play that big of a role in the story going forward. Yeah, Pomni was definitely tripping over herself in regards to Gummy Goo and a borderline flirting, and Ragatha wants someone to flirt at her, so yeah, we definitely have that going on, but we're in episode 4. We've got 5 episodes to still deal with a lot of character development, what kinds of craziness is happening within the digital circus. I really don't see romance really playing a big role going forward. But again, if you disagree with me or if you agree with me, I'd like to hear about that in the comments. But otherwise, man, what an episode this was. I'm looking forward to the next one. Maybe it's going to come out in 2-3 months. Don't know. But at the rate that Glitch has been going with a lot of their projects, I would not be surprised if we get the next episode come sometime in February. Fingers crossed for that. So with all of that being said, if you enjoyed this video, then please make sure that you like. If you haven't already subscribed, we would absolutely love that. And if you'd like to support the work that we do, then please check out the books that we have published. Links for them are in the description below. But otherwise, thank you so much for joining us on this incredible adventure that we call writing. And until the next time, y'all, watch out for those stupid sauce burgers. And until the next video, y'all, tschüss.